Opening that can. Alright, so in this video, this was a topic that I had written down several weeks ago, but it was still a video that I wanted to talk about because I've kind of been observing this again, being in corporate America, as I've talked about. I've been in corporate America for about a month and a half at this point again, and after basically taking 2 years off, so it's kind of annoying to be back, but it's also kind of hilarious how nothing has changed from my previous 7-year stint in corporate America. So yeah, as you guys will see in the title of this video, you already kind of know what I'm going to talk about, but once again, it involves becoming our favorite topic over here, and that is modern women, modernity, you could say. And this very much falls into the purview of modernity because of what corporate America essentially is. Charles Haywood, if you guys don't know who that is, he runs a YouTube channel called The Worthy House. Highly recommended. If you guys haven't checked that out, he does really good book reviews. He's actually one of the guys that have helped me discover a lot of the books that I have in my current library, my growing library up there. But he essentially had this concept. I don't know if he coined it, but it was the first time I heard this concept, and he called it bullshit jobs. We're almost 2 minutes in. I hope saying that didn't trigger the algorithm because I said a swear. But yeah, he talks about bullshit jobs, and what he means by that is these corporate email middleman. You know, I don't want to like dox myself and give my job away or anything like that, but I am in many ways working another one of these bullshit jobs, because that's kind of what office jobs are in general. You know, very little work gets done. They're essentially just a middleman position. That's kind of how it always has been with call centers. You know, HR departments are involved, as is in everything nowadays, but the HR department is like the ultimate middleman. And that's kind of going to be the theme of this video, is the HR department. And as I said in the title, that the modern office work is essentially just daycare for women. and I was thinking about that the other day, because, you know, I've talked about how women like put their kids in daycare, but I was thinking, what purpose, like this specifically is going to talk about female bosses and HR in general, because usually HR is women. I think I've only had one instance where my HR person was a dude. Maybe 2 instances, but there was always like a higher level from them, and it was always a woman. So there was the one this is my past job, so it won't matter if I talk too much about this, but there was one instance where I needed to get something resolved, and I couldn't. It was like a doctor issue with my I have carpal tunnel, so like there was an instance basically where they were trying to put me on this position where I had to type a lot, and they had like really high requirements, and so I basically had to like try to get it resolved, so I like could just do the job they hired me to do. It wasn't that I was like complaining or anything. It was just that it was one of those situations where they hired me to do a job, and then they started laying people off, and so they're like, oh shit, we don't have enough people to do that job anymore, so we're just going to make all the other people do all the other jobs, and then they no raise, obviously. That's how these things work. But long story short, I had to go to HR to get this resolved, and I remember it was just a process from hell. It was I had to go to this guy who didn't know anything. He was like one of the most effeminate men I've ever dealt with. He might have been gay, to be honest. he gave off that vibe, but I just couldn't quite tell. And that happens a lot with men in this corporate world as well. This is going to kind of tie into the whole female daycare aspect of this video, is that a lot of the men that are trying to play the game and climb the ladder, they also have this effeminate vibe to them as well, to where it feels like, you know, they are also in daycare, right? It's this very, I've made videos in the past, they haven't gotten many views, but you guys can go check those out if you want, talking about the work family and the corporate environment for the thinking man. But essentially it's just like it's like an animal farm for normies. That's kind of what you experience at one of these. Sorry about that, I got an itch there real quick. It's what you experience in these kinds of environments, because it's what they attracted. And I'm not saying everyone's a normie, but, you know, like me, I have to hide my power level, I call it, you know, and I don't mean that in like a super arrogant way. I just mean that, like, you know, I know certain things. I can't just talk about certain things because it would probably trigger an HR event, speaking of HR. And, you know, I'm just playing the game right now. I've got my goals financially with what I want to accomplish with this, and so you just kind of play the game. But it is, it's very interesting to just take stock, observe, make mental notes of what you're seeing. But yeah, with that situation, I had to go through this guy, and then it went up to this like woman, and my boss was a woman too. I forgot to say that. So like, I was on the phones, my direct supervisor above me was a woman, and then there was like this I think it was a woman too. She was the head of all that too. So I had to go through 2 women, and then I had to get to this guy who was like totally useless, effeminate moron. And keep in mind, this whole thing started because they just didn't want to accommodate me, and my accommodation was simple. I was like, I will do the typing, but I just want to do a little bit less and just have you mix that up with my normal job that you hired me to do, which was to take phone calls. And they just wouldn't do that. They were like, oh, no, we want you to do this like thing all the time with no raise. Again, this would have been considered a higher level position from what I was on, so realistically there should have been, it would have been like it was almost kind of like a forced promotion. They say that that doesn't happen in corporate America, but it absolutely does. So it was that situation, and I finally got through to HR and got to this lady at the very top, and the way that it got resolved was I like literally had to get this like note from my doctor, and it was so stupid because I was like, it's not that big of a deal. I just need you to like be reasonable here. But this whole HR process was like, we need documentation, we need all of this stuff just so that we can make sure that it's approved that you can't type all of these emails. It was like, it's like you have a broken foot and you can't walk, and you clearly can't walk. They can see that. And they're like, well, you need to like prove that you can't walk to us, or even though we're forcing you to do something that you didn't even agree to do, we need you to like prove that you can't do that thing. So again, this hints to what I was saying, daycare for women. All of this was like this pointless bureaucratic process. This took weeks, maybe a month to fully resolve. So you add up all those hours, right? All those work days, all those work hours, all the mental energy that was spent on this one specific thing that just involved me, right? And you can kind of grasp the microcosm that is the HR department, and just the absolute waste of human mental capacity, right? As Dave the Distributus talks about, elite human capital, right? Just the amount of waste and unproductive paid time off, essentially, that went on during this process of just getting a doctor to say, oh yeah, you should just like let him do the job that you hired him to do. And yeah, that was it was really eye-opening. That happened probably 6 years ago now. That was a while ago, like 2018, 2019. It was like right before COVID too, which I always remember how funny all this is, because after COVID, it was like they were willing to do anything. Like, oh yeah, we just need you to not be at the office. Like, just work from home, do whatever. Like, you can have whatever you want. Just please, just don't quit, bro. That was how it was for like the first 2 years of COVID, before the mass layoffs. Before reality set in, is what I like to say, which was that writing was always on the wall. And so, yeah, I'm back in corporate America now, and I've only been in there, like I said, for like a month, but I'm observing again, and I'm noticing the same pattern. Like, nothing's changed. And the thing that's changed is when I was in corporate America pre-2020, it was the millennials, my generation. Now I'm seeing the same process being replicated with the Zoomers, and it's even funnier because the Zoomers are, I don't want to be too harsh on Zoomers because I know what they've gotten out of life as kids. They got a pretty shitty deal. So I'm not trying to like be like, oh, they're like a lot of Gen X and, older millennials do this. They'll just like make entire videos about how stupid Zoomers are, right? Which, they are, to be fair. But there's reasons why they are that way. But yeah, now I'm experiencing this in like a Zoomer environment, and it's even worse. And it's hard to describe what I'm experiencing. This could be like the age thing, right? Where you start getting older and you start looking at the younger people, and you recognize the similarities with their situation, but you also just can't relate because they're from like a different age. But you'll be like talking to some of these people and they'll just stare at you. I've noticed that a lot. Like, they just kind of stare at you. Another thing I've noticed with Zoomers, this is way different than millennials, is that they're still very HR compliant, but they're also a lot more irreverent about it. So like a good example is you'll be talking to them about something. Like, there's this one guy in particular that I talk to, and he'll make like really like off the cuff, like very, very subvertly. He's good at this. He'll make these like really offensive jokes, but he does it. I'm not saying like I'm offended. I'm saying that like this would trigger an HR event, right? He does it in such a way though, where it's like you can't, unless you're smart, basically, you wouldn't pick up on this. It's like he's one where it's like, I think he's checking his power level as well. 'Cause it's like he knows the game. He understands like, oh, I can't really do certain things, but like I'm still me. And this was a video I watched by another creator named Jord. He's kind of an interesting guy. I don't really agree with a lot of the things he says because he's almost like a right-wing Styx Hexenhammer. That's what I've decided he is, because he really believes in this like magic bullshit, which I do. I believe in the metaphysical, but I have a more Christian view of it. But he's like really into the, like, all this stuff is valuable, right? It probably is. It's all demons if you think about it. But yeah, I'm going on a tangent. I apologize. He made a video, Jord. He made a video about how to interact with normies. It was a very good video. Highly recommend it. It was one of his more recent videos. And that was kind of the video that inspired me to make this. And he kind of talks about how when you're dealing with the normie, you just have to, this is also dealing with the daycare, right? Like this is how I'm not going insane right now at my current job, is that you have to set the goal of what you want, and then you kind of just have to deal with the normie. And one of the ways to do that is, like, if you're going to talk about something controversial, you want to do it in a way where you talk about it. And this is what this guy does that I was referring to, the guy that I think he knows the game. You want to talk about it in a way where you're like putting the question on them. So you can say something like, a good example is, surprisingly enough, a lot of these people were talking about how Trump said the F word on TV recently, right? Well, this would have been a couple weeks from me making this video. This was the most recent example I can think of where this came up, where they're like, did you hear what he said about those two countries? He said none of them know what the F they're doing. And But the way to do it, the way that I was dealing with it, is they would say that to me, and then I would just say something like, "Yeah, I did see that. I know. Like, what do you think about that?" And Jord talked about this in his video, so that's why it was funny, because I already did this. But that's the way to do it. Is you kind of just put the question on them. You don't come out and say like, "Oh yeah, he said that," and like, "Fuck Israel," you know, and like that's so based. What he said is, "Oh my gosh, like Iran, what a mess." You just kind of like take the info in, and you just kind of be like, "Yeah, that's very interesting. You know, like, what do you think about that? What do you think about what do you think about what's going on?" It's actually fascinating too, because sometimes the normie will activate, and they'll actually give like, sometimes they'll give like decently coherent opinions. And so it's a very fun way to embrace the suck while you're at work, in those like soul-crushing, mundane conversations. But the second part of this video that I wanted to get into is the daycare part, and this is something I'm experiencing again that I kind of like removed it from my brain, and it's not as bad at this job, to its great credit. At my old job it was way worse, but it's the countless meetings, the countless criticisms, I want to say. They call it quality assurance, but all it is pointless criticisms, because we live in, like I've said, we live in a progressive liberalist mindset philosophy of a society. And so in everyone's mind, especially in the normie world, in the corporate normie world, you always have to be progressing to something. Like, even if you're doing your job exactly the way they hired you to do your job, they still want more. That's what it is. They always want more. This is where that term soft quitting comes from in corporate America, where you kind of just soft quitting is a little different, but the concept is like you could work your role very well, but you purposely work just like a little bit shittier, because you know, it's like, if I just work a little bit less efficiently, like when I have my meeting, the goal that I set will be like something that's like even easier, and you just keep doing that. You know, I learned this game at my last job. You basically just had to basically like pretend like you sucked at like a certain skill. Trying not to be too specific, because you know, I'm still in this environment, but you kind of had to like pretend that you were like more inept than you are. That's a way to think about it. That's part of playing the game. And it's, again, it's the fault of the HR and all this bullshit. It's because they're just not satisfied with doing the job you were hired to do. They want you to do more, and then they also just don't want to pay you more. So the whole mentality is their fault. It's like, you could just, you know, like treat me like an adult, ask me to do more, and then pay me more money, and then if I agree to that, then yeah. But also you should expect that maybe I won't agree to that. Maybe I'm completely fine doing the amount of work that I'm doing, and you can just not give me a raise. It's just like, it's like they think that like everyone wants a raise and everyone wants to climb the corporate ladder. It's a really weird mindset. But the daycare part is that the women seem to be the ones now that always get the high manager positions. It's very rare that you see a guy there, and if you do see a guy there, the guy's probably in hell every day, because every one of his peers that he's dealing with in that environment is a woman. So he's just surrounded by women all day, constant, you know, bitching and harping and talking about feelings and civil rights mindset crap, which is what HR department is. But yeah, it's essentially what it is, guys. Office work is a farm for women. It's like they've taken women out of their most important role in life, which is having a family and having children and serving their husbands and their children, and, you know, building the household, the nest. And since men are so demasculated now, the men have just kind of like fallen in line with this. But you're essentially putting women on a farm. That was what I was thinking about. A daycare, you could say, right? Like I said, they're putting women in these daycares to kind of like keep them from going insane. That's what I was thinking. Like women are already going insane because of the internet and because of all the degeneracy. But you know, a lot of the women are also not marriage material now, or they're single mothers or whatever. They've all made like a lot of them have made horrible mistakes, and they're just not desirable for men. That's just a straight up brutal honesty. A lot of these millennial women, as we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years, they are not desirable to women or to men. They're probably going to die alone with their 2.5 kids and their 6.7 cats, or whatever you want to say, right? Their dog their dog children, and that's just the reality. So society has this problem now. It's like, well, what the hell do we do with these women? How do we keep them from going insane? And I've said in the past that the way to do this is to just restore the patriarchy and just let men take charge again. And I don't mean like the scumbag men, but like real men that just like actually want to love women. You know, maybe just accept too that this millennial generation, you know, they were fed a raw deal. You know, there's what can be done, right? And you could just go back to a more Christian distributive society with that. It's like, okay, these women are broken, but like we can still take care of them communally. We can, you know, all of this stuff can be solved with a Christian mindset. But we don't live in that. We're like in this Nietzschean, postmodern, nihilistic. So that they're looking at it pragmatically. They're like, well, we need GDP to go up. So what we'll do is we'll just create all these pointless middleman jobs. And this was feminism from the beginning. Women were never capable of doing what men do to keep society running. This was all just play. I've said in the past it was just a giant shit test, because women love to shit test men. It was a giant shit test, and men failed the shit test. That's all feminism ever was. It's a luxury ideology. And if you don't believe that, then you're just retarded. I hate to say that to you. Like, if you don't know that by now, I've got some comments late on some of my other videos where, you know, they're trying to talk to me about how women invented all these amazing things. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Everything that a woman invented or did or innovated, it was a man that paved the way and validated the woman throughout. We learned this with Elizabeth Holmes and what, Theranos was it called? Right? They said she was the female Elon Musk. All bullshit. She's in prison now. Look that one up. So they have to figure out a way to deal with this problem that they've created. We've convinced women that they're oppressed. They don't need husbands. They don't need family. Now they're just out in the wild. It's kind of like when this is a little spicy for some, but it's like when the Civil War ended and we just like freed the slaves, right? We didn't think of like a way like, well, we need to deal with the slaves. We need to like give them a purpose or something. We can't just like free them into the wild after their entire lives being slaves and indentured servants. We can't just like free them into the wild and expect them to just figure this shit out fast, right? Or ever. So what do we do with that? And, you know, to Lincoln's great credit, one of the few praises that I give Abraham Lincoln, he did have a solution. It was send them to Liberia. He was going to send them back, and he was, you know, it was a flawed idea, because ultimately it probably would have just ended up the same way it ended up here, with the benefit of it not being on American soil. But essentially it was, yeah, we're just going to give the blacks democracy. We're going to give them their own country, and we're going to give them a constitution. If you guys look at the Liberia flag, it looks a lot like the American flag. That was the idea. Okay. So to Lincoln's credit, he had enough foresight to be like, okay, we're going to free the slaves, but then after that, like, it's not just solved. You know, we can't just like free the slaves and be like, okay, now go out and just go out and just by your merits and your hard work and your belief in Austrian free market economics, bucko, you'll just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and become something of yourself. You know, that's not how humans work. This is why we have a welfare state, because humans are stupid, and also a lot of people want to be ruled. That's women especially. This is one of the biggest lies of modernity, is we think that women want to go out and be these independent units and work and girl boss, where most of them are miserable, right? Female psychosis is at an all-time high. Females are the highest consumers of antidepressants on the planet right now. They choose Xanax like Altoids at this point. It's ridiculous. So it was always a raw deal. And again, I'm using the black example to illustrate a point here, is that wanting to have authority. You don't. The boomers have done a thing where they've worded it in the worst possible way, right? They use oppression, and they use like abuse and all this stuff of like anytime you're under any kind of nationalist or authoritarian, right? They use that word too, authoritarian, as if it's like that in and of itself is a bad thing, right? But people need guidance in life. There are people that are followers, and there are people that are leaders, and this is just the basic Pareto principle. The 20% rule, that might be even more generous. It's probably more like the 6 to 1% rule, and everyone else follows. So the entire lie of modernity is that you can go out and you can self-determine for yourself. Everyone can do this, right? And again, not taking even into account IQ levels, race and gender, all these factors that matter when determining these things. They're just like, oh no, you can just go out and do it. You can do it. You want to do it too. They don't even take that. Maybe I don't want to do it. Maybe I do just want to have like someone that I can follow, right? That's kind of how I've always been, if I'm being honest. Like, I've never been like a super go-getter. I would much rather have had like some structure in my life. I've never really experienced that though. I've had it through the church, but I don't really believe in my church's theology, so that's always been a problem. But that's the closest I've ever had to, you know, in the boomer sense, I guess you could say, to like structure in my life, is that it's given me at least a moral compass, right? Even though I don't believe in the church itself's goals, which is why I'm heading towards orthodoxy, to kind of see if that one is the path for me, which, you know, I've got some pretty strong affirmations that probably will be the right way to go, you know, when I can get my act together and actually commit to it. But I've always at least had that spiritual guidance, so I've at least understood innately that order is necessary. You need some kind of guiding principle, right? You can also just do things, but you need some coherent narrative or structure or something to believe in. You can't just like go out and, what is the belief now, right? Especially to women. Like, what are they selling women? They're selling them like, oh, go out and be a girl boss and make money. But the thing is you're just going to pay a lot of that money. The money that the man could have made if you were just at home, now you're going to go out and make that money, but the man also still has to work. So we're just going to double tax you, and then all that money that you could have made that is now taxed, we're going to just send that to like immigrants and like homeless people and like people that are not your children, you know. And so then you're never going to really have any kind of stability in your life. And with women especially, this creates just absolute neuroses, because that's what women, whether they admit it or not, that is what they crave the most out of anything, is stability. I would say a man craves beauty, you know, fertility, opportunity, or not opportunity, you could say promise, right? Like when I say that with a woman, it's like when a man sees a beautiful woman, he sees the potential there. It's like, oh, this could be the mother of my children. So that's kind of what men crave, the potential. That's the word I'm looking for. When they look at a beautiful woman, they see potential. But a woman sees that too in a man, but in a different way. She sees the potential of the man creating order and security. And this is another reason why women, I think, like the corporate job in the modern world, is because now that men are no longer, you know, taking charge because we don't have patriarchy, the women are just seeking that structure in another way. And they believe, you know, wrongly, that they found it in corporate America, but it's just creating more neuroses, because at the end of the day, they can just get fired like anyone else. You know, they don't, there's no true commitment there, not like it would be with a husband. They can just be let go and move on and find their next daycare, essentially. And that's where we're at. I think that's an industry that might come up in the future, to be honest, if things continue the way they are, is that you're going to have like a literal industry of like women going insane and like society trying to figure out how to deal with that. And it'll be very interesting to see, because I already know the solution they're going to try is like, oh, they're going to try the therapeutic route again, the Freudian, you know, Jungian bullshit psychoanalysis route that they've always tried. They're never going to address the spiritual issues, is what I'm trying to get to. They're never going to admit, like, yeah, maybe we got to bring Christianity back. There's going to be pockets of it, like you're seeing it now, but it's never going to go mainstream again. I truly believe that. I think barring Christ returning to the earth and the eschaton happening, we're not going to really see like a mass resurgence of Christianity. Again, this is just my opinion. I could be wrong. So we're just going to live in this neo-feudalism, this neo-daycare, and women are still going to, society's going to start crumbling, and men are going to have to start fixing things, but there's going to be a lot of women that, like I said before, they're just flat out going to be undesirable to men. So there's only two options. Like, either the women have to agree to some kind of harem situation where like elite men will take care of them. And this is kind of already happening without acknowledgement, where women are becoming part of like the elite men's rotations. And it's essentially a harem of women that are being, Elon Musk is a good example of this. Elon Musk has like 6 different women that he pays child support to or something like that. NFL stars, this is another example. Essentially those are harems. So you're going to see that, but usually those are for like really like beautiful, above mid women, right? We'll say like beautiful to gorgeous level of women. But the rest, average and below, those women are going to have to be put somewhere, because like no man, especially as they age and they become menopausal, and men are going to have to do something with those women. And so that is what corporate America is, to cut to the chase after 30 minutes of blathering. Appreciate watching, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. That is essentially what is going to happen, is that they're just going to have to figure out a way to put these women in some kind of situation where they could be corralled, if you will, give them some sort of purpose now that their real purpose is long past, right? And the even sadder part is like again, to bring up, this is what I'll end on, to bring up like the Christian idea. In the past, what they would do with women like this is they would just make them midwives. They would just have them help take care of like grandchildren. But we're in a society now where it's like the grandmothers didn't have children, and then now the granddaughters are also not having children. The grandmothers in this case would actually be the millennials, because we're getting older. But the Zoomers don't really have children either, or they have like one child that's in daycare all day while she goes in girl bosses. And so there's just no awareness even of this anymore by the mass society. So that's kind of all I have to say about this one, guys. Again, another long video. I appreciate these. Like I said before, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing 5 videos a week. We'll see. Right now it's just taking up all of my Saturday. I try to make videos during the week on my like lunch breaks and stuff, but I'm so tired and exhausted during the week, and I still am trying to hit the gym every day, that I just haven't had time to make the videos. And I'm not doing as much research. So I feel like some of these videos are entering into that dreaded slop category that I definitely don't want my channel to become. So I'll be making a poll soon. You guys will see it. I'm gonna ask you guys what you prefer, and we'll go from there. But thank you so much for watching. Again, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like the video, comment down below. With that said, I will talk to you on the next one.